Hi there, welcome to the e-commerce nurse podcast, our 34th episode. I'm Karina McLeod, ex-Amazonian and CEO and founder of eCommerce Nurse and Vendor Society. Today, we're going to be talking about launching and selling your e-commerce business and how to build a successful exit strategy. We have a special guest, Ben Leonard, co-founder of Ecom Brokers. Ben understands what it takes to grow and sell an international e-commerce brand, having grown and sold his own seven-figure brand in just 3 years. Ben now helps other sellers do the same with his e-commerce consultancy and brokerage. So a big thank you and welcome to our show today, Ben.
Hey, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So I've given a little mini bit bio on yourself, but of course that doesn't really do much justice. So it'd be great if you could share with our listeners first off a bit more about yourself and your background.
Sure, yeah. I got into e-commerce kind of by accident in 2016. Before that, I was a marine ecologist. So I live just south of Aberdeen, which is an oil and gas town, and I was the tree hugger in the room telling the oil and gas engineers that they couldn't throw chemicals in the sea. And I generally enjoyed my job, but then I got quite ill with a heart problem, and I'm fine now. But I had to take a break from work and my fitness hobbies. And during this time, I started a fitness brand as a hobby. It turned out I was quite good at that. So I quit my job, grew that, and I sold that in late 2019, and that business was doing about $6 million in revenue that time. And the broker that I used to sell that business, the experience with them could have been better for a variety of reasons. And so my accountant and I, after she'd saved the day, really, after that deal was done, we created our own brokerage. So that's how the brokerage started. And meanwhile, I'm helping others with the consulting, and I'm still building brands now because I love it. And I feel like in order for me to help people, I still need to understand what it's like to be, in the trenches of e-commerce, banging my head against a brick wall because something's broken or seller support won't help me or something like that. And here I am, and I love e-commerce now. And in a way, I'm glad I got ill and my career changed because I wouldn't be able to do the things that I do now if it hadn't happened.
Awesome. As I say, everything happens for a reason, and glad you're as you say, you're well now, and that's quite a shift in career as well. So and the fact to then see that you are actually, it is something you're great at, given the results that you've seen so far. So fitness brand. So what actually, you mentioned it about being a hobby. But what did that look like at the start? Because even if it's a hobby, you've still got to find a product that's gonna actually sell.
Yeah, so I was always brand first, sell stuff on the internet second. And let me just kind of explain what I mean by that. I had the idea for a fitness brand several years before I got ill, probably 2013, 14. I'd been training at CrossFit with my friends, and at the end of a session, somebody said, "We beasted it today." And I thought to myself, we beasted it. Beast Gear, that'd be a cool name for a fitness brand. And then I forgot all about it. It wasn't until the catalyst of getting ill sparked me into action that I said, okay, let's go and develop a fitness brand. And the reason I think that part of the story is important is that I was always about serving a particular audience, right? Serving a group of people, fitness enthusiasts. And that to me is what a brand is, right? It's a collection of products that serve a particular group of people, solve problems for them. So for me, it wasn't, especially back in those days, 2016, 17, there was all this hype about using software tools to identify gaps on Amazon and other platforms to hack your way to making a quick buck on finding the right product. I'd already decided to start a fitness brand before I knew I could sell on Amazon. I thought I was going to sell into gyms. It was only while my first product, which was a skipping rope, was being developed that I found out that you could sell on Amazon. I thought that when you bought on Amazon, you were buying from Jeff Bezos. I didn't know third-party selling was a thing. And I hadn't even decided that I was going to sell through my own website yet either. And I think because my lack of experience led me down that path, I'm very grateful because I might have been scared off. if I had thought about, oh, I need to pick the right product and make sure that the BSR is correct and all that kind of nonsense.
That's really interesting because, as you say, you know, there is this a lot of noise out there that is about finding that niche, but is that actually your passion? And I love what you've talked about there in terms of figuring out the brand. The brand comes first. I completely agree. And I've always sort of buying URLs when I think of a good brand name, and checking always, you know, checking that it's available and no one else has taken it, even though none of them have come to
I do the same, and I register trademarks now as well. I've spent a small fortune on domains and trademarks for projects that will probably never happen, but at least I've got them there.
Definitely when someone says something, oh, I'm just going to go and get that URL. So yeah, I completely hear that. But I love that because you've talked about your passion, and that the one part also was about the community. As in, yes, it is a product that is serving the community. If you don't have interest in that product, it becomes a challenge to really tap into that community.
Yeah, it really does. I tell people to really try and build a brand around something you are passionate about, or at least someone else in your organization is passionate about, or someone very close to you is passionate about, because otherwise you're not going to have the knowledge about what people want and need. You know, what are their challenges as it relates to that category, that topic, whether that's a hobby or a profession. You know, you could be building a brand for dentists or amateur photographers or knitters or anything. But if you don't understand what their pain points are, what their challenges are, what their values are, where they hang out online, you can't solve their problems, speak to them, create the content that will engage with them, and you can't get in front of them because you don't know where they are. And it becomes a real challenge. If you're, I talk to people frequently who've created this sort of mishmash of products which are vaguely related, and they've given it a brand name and they slapped it on Amazon, and now they're really struggling because they don't have a true brand identity and they don't have a following of loyal customers, fans, if you want to call them that, and they don't understand how to communicate with these people.
Yeah, definitely. It's so important. Definitely so important. So you've got the brand part. And so, you know, and I guess you had an idea, as you mentioned, you started off with a skipping rope, but the part that always, and personally always I find quite daunting, is that whole manufacturer piece, right? So you know what product you want, you've got the brand. What's that next step that you then took to really start understanding manufacturing and to delve into that from the previous career that you were doing?
Sure. So I had no business background, no marketing experience, no product development experience, but I did know just through general knowledge that contract manufacturing is a thing. So some Googling led me to Alibaba. I didn't know what Alibaba was. Why would I? It wasn't part of my world, right? I was an ecologist. And on Alibaba, I was able to identify probably around 10 potential manufacturing partners. And what's really important is if you are using Alibaba, which is a great resource still for people to use, provided you use it right, is make use of all the filtering options. So you filter for suppliers that have been on there for at least several years, that have particular safety certs and audit reports uploaded, probably that are signed up to Alibaba's, you know, gold standard and premium program, so that you know that they're legit. And, you know, you can even do some Googling and check that these manufacturers have traveled significant distances to Europe and the US to attend trade shows, because then you really know they are legit. You know, a dodgy fake profile on Alibaba is not going to have made the effort to travel all the way from, say, China to Germany for a trade show, for instance. So I found about 10 manufacturers on there and sent them messages on Alibaba and started to receive samples. And after I had got a feel for the communication standards, how quickly they responded, how good their English was, how the quality of the sample that I received, I was able to narrow it down probably to say 3 or 5 manufacturers. And I began the process. And this is where I think that although I had no business experience, my scientific background helped. I didn't want an off-the-shelf product. but I also didn't have the money to develop my own product from scratch. But I knew what the problem was with my existing skipping rope that I wanted to improve on. So I was able to work with the supplier that I ended up choosing to say, send me everything you've got. And then I said, I like this bit, I don't like that bit. Can we make this bit a little longer? What about this section? So it ended up being like this Frankenstein of different components that I liked that were off the shelf, but had never figured in that way before. So I'd effectively made it a unique product. And it was my kind of scientific, let's test it and see what works background that worked, because I was very fortunate to be friends with quite a few semi-pro and pro athletes who then helped me test my products. And we said, right, that works, that's not so good, let's improve this.
That's amazing. I love that, because I'm just listening to the whole Alibaba part, and yeah, it's just some great tips there in terms of the travel part is really interesting, because there's often when they say, oh, go and have, and there's people that are based in certain near manufacturers that can do all the checks and everything for you. But actually the traveling part is quite interesting, because they just really get that overall, you can see, as you say, who is legit or not. So you get to the point of manufacturer and so forth, and then you've got your stock. Talk to me about what it was like to receive that first shipment of your product that you've kind of worked with the manufacturer on with your brand name, and then it's time to sell.
Yeah, so the first sort of final samples that arrived with the final version I was going to sell, that was very exciting. I made this, or people made it for me. This works. I sent money to somebody and they made what I told them to make. And then when I received my first shipment, which was for 500 of the first product for Beast Gear, which was called the Beast Rope, and they arrived at my parents' house, and we put them into my dad's garage, and it was surreal. It was, wow, I bought 500 of these. And now I'm going to package them up and send them off to a third-party fulfillment warehouse. And then when a customer buys it, I don't have to touch it. And that was an incredible feeling. I felt this is, a big boy grown up business here.
Yeah.
It was a hobby, but it was very much, becoming a reality, becoming a real business. And it was a great feeling. It was a really empowering feeling. I can make something. And the longer the business went on and the more success I had, to the point that it became clear that I could go full time if I wanted, that was very empowering, because you're not working for the man anymore, or that you don't have to work for the man.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. And so where did you first sell? Was it Amazon, or did you go to
It was Amazon. So I had whilst developing the first product, I became aware of this opportunity to sell on Amazon, and I quickly became aware that the benefit of doing that far outweighed the effort that would have been required to scale up selling directly into gyms, for example, and selling on my own website. In the end, we did sell our own website. I'm very glad we did. That was a really important part of the brand identity. But the initial first easiest thing I could do was set up an account on Amazon in the UK, as it happened. With the benefit of hindsight, I might have started in the US, but it felt natural to me to start in the UK because I'm in the UK. And this was my first foray into e-commerce and business. And so I wanted to make sure that I kept things relatively close. That's my doorbell, sorry about that. And therefore, I started on Amazon UK.
Awesome. What was do you remember the first sale that you got?
Yeah, I do. Actually, well, so there's a funny story about that. So you got to remember, this was 2016.
Yeah.
So it was I think it was June 2016 the products went live. And this was and some people listening won't know what this is because they've joined this industry since then. But back then, if you looked at the reviews, most of the reviews on pretty much every product on Amazon were a glowing review, and then at the bottom of the review was a disclaimer that said, I received this product at a discount or for free in exchange for my honest opinion, right? And so you had to, you couldn't not, because everybody was, you had to get friends and family to buy it from you first. And leave you an honest review. And Obviously I did that because that's what you had to do, because everybody was doing that. And so the funny story was this: my wife, my then girlfriend, now wife, was, she's a nurse. She's not an entrepreneur, and so she didn't have quite the same mindset about having to kind of spend money to make money, take a little bit of a risk. And she was helping to keep my feet on the ground, right? And every day I'd come back from work, and she'd come back from her work, and I'd say, oh, I sold, how many do you think I sold today? And she'd say, I don't know. I said, well, I sold 3. And she said, and how many of those people were your friends? And I said, oh, well, all of them. And then the next day it'd be like, I sold 5. And how many of those people were your friends? All of them. And then we got to a point where I had my first sale from a stranger. So it sold like 7, and one of them was not my friend.
Oh, wow.
And I was absolutely stoked. I was like, this is interesting. A stranger who I don't know, and I looked up the order number, so-and-so in, Glasgow or wherever they were, had bought my product. And I remember the day we got to 15 sales, and none of them were my friends or family. And I was like, wow, we are onto something. I made a thing, and strangers on the internet are buying it, and they like it, and they're leaving good reviews. This could go somewhere. And that was an amazing feeling.
I bet, because it's something you've personally created, and you've gone through all that time and everything, and it's something also that you're passionate about. So you and it makes me laugh about the review part. And anyone listening, of course, that isn't familiar with the good old days on Amazon, where you could probably get somebody to purchase your item, or there were sites that existed where you could get hold of a product and get a freebie if you wrote a review, is a thing of the past, and that you are banished by Amazon if you do any of those tricks now, just to let anyone know. But it was, at those times, it was what everybody was doing. So you've got this product. Then you then spoke at the start about a range. So I'm guessing, how long was it from having that one product, your skipping rope, to a point where you just expanded into more product areas?
Pretty quick. I knew that I wanted to create a range of products to serve the same group of people. And I got my second product up, I think, in the August or September.
Oh, wow.
And from then on, I was launching probably 1 or 2 products per quarter. And yeah, it was very exciting. It grew a lot faster than I thought it would. And I think a huge part of that was the brand identity. Most of the other products on Amazon within my category were either big brands who were not nimble enough to use Amazon properly or to tell a story, or people who perhaps had started on Amazon a couple of years before me, but had no passion for what they were selling. They just used tools to identify stuff they could sell. Yep. They were selling stuff. The products were inferior. The brand identity was inferior. There was no customer service or experience. And therefore, there was nothing to hook people in and get them excited about your brand. And it was pretty easy to completely swallow them up.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And the point that you make about bigger brands not being so nimble, even to this day, we're still seeing a lot of the larger brands struggle. And we as an agency support a lot on digital transformation. But of course, there's so much more red tape. You're not so agile. You can't react, and you need to be very reactive with Amazon as it evolves as well. So what ended up being, out of the time, how many products first did you have in total, and what ended up being your biggest, the best performer out of all of them?
How many products did we have? Probably about 10 to 15 parent products. Wow. And a variety. Various of those products had child ASINs or SKUs associated with them. So, for example, if there were sizes or color variations. The best performing products were the skipping ropes. So the Beast Rope, the Beast Rope Pro, the Beast Rope Elite, and a fourth one, the Beast Rope Fire, which I launched for the new owners shortly after I sold the business. And then our weightlifting straps performed phenomenally well. And then there was a product that I completely developed from scratch and owned the patent on, called Beast Grips, which was a big success. And I knew it was successful when the main competitor in that category, who'd had no real competition for like 15 to 20 years, tried to sue me. And I won. So those were the big ones that did well.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's so it got a bit dirty at one point.
It got pretty terrifying, but it was an exciting ride. And when I won, it was a great feeling.
Yeah, amazing. And did you, I mean, we're talking a lot about the successes there. Was there ever a point where you can get really excited, right? Expand the range, have a product, and that product just didn't perform like you anticipated?
So people say that you ought to kill the products that aren't performing well enough. And I never had to do that. Because none of my products performed poorly. And I think that is as a result of truly understanding who my customers were and what they wanted, because I was my customer.
Yeah.
So there were times that I thought about launching certain products and actually started a good way down the development before I had a change of heart. Those would have been killed because they would not have succeeded. But fortunately, I didn't ever launch one that didn't do well enough. Of course, there have to be products that are at the bottom of the league table of performance of the products, right? But they were always good enough that they were mopping up a decent number of customers and providing value to those customers and turning a profit and paying for themselves. So why would I kill them?
That's awesome. That's awesome. And it goes back to, as you say at the start, that whole, the passion, the brand identity, and knowing your audience. So moving forward then, so you've got this successful range on Amazon. What came to the part? Did you know in your mind when you start, because you started it was a hobby, right? So I'm guessing exit strategy didn't even come across your mind at the initial stages. When did that happen?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. My initial plan had been it would be a bit of a hobby, might earn me some pocket money. When it became clear this was a real business, my plan changed to, let's turn this into a business where I am the visionary at the top with a team of people and a variety of outsourced agencies and also automation tools running the show for me. So I can live passive income is not really a thing, but it could be as passive as possible, or at least as enjoyable as possible without running around like a headless chicken, which I was doing at times when I was still working my full-time job, of course. And that's just what it's like for an entrepreneur. People do need to kind of accept that. You're going to go through that. But then late 2018, I started to think about, well, I've got something very valuable on my hands here, and where are we in our stage in life? And early 2019, I made the decision to try to sell the business. My wife was pregnant. We wanted to move house. The business was at a point where I either expanded my team significantly or handed over the reins. And I had a friend who had sold two businesses, way smaller than mine, through one of the main generic listing or flipping websites. And I had a couple of conversations with him, and then I did some research and spoke with a variety of brokers. And in March 2019, I settled on a brokerage to work with to sell the business.
Interesting. So there was a point where you decided, right, I don't want to continue this and take it to the next level.
Yes. When I came to understand, back of an envelope, what sort of money I could get for the business, it made sense for my family and I. And if I had ended up selling my business a year later than I did, probably would have got double the money, the way the market went. I sold on Halloween 2019. The explosion in M&A in e-commerce was in 2020. And we were seeing some bonkers multiples. But I don't regret selling when I did, because you don't know what the future is going to hold. I couldn't have predicted that. It was still the right thing for me and my family. And one of the things that I encourage clients to do when I'm helping them with their exit strategy is to ask themselves, what is right for you? What are your goals? What are your values? And particularly when we're looking at deal structures, is making sure that the amount of money you get guaranteed for your business is enough. And if you just imagine to yourself that no earnouts and no additional monies as part of that deal structure are going to come to you, and be very gloomy and pessimistic about it, will you be satisfied with the guaranteed amount that you're going to get? I think that's very important for people to understand.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, yeah, as you sort of say, what's important to them, because it's whether or not they're ready to sell as well and let go, I guess. I mean, how do you get to that point as well, where it is like your baby, you've created this brand that you're passionate about? Did you ever feel torn as well, as in letting go?
Yeah, I did. The people and the buyer that I sold to, spoke a good game. And I also had negotiated a deal, and this is something I help people do now as well, whereby I was going to continue to develop and launch products for the new owners in exchange for a profit share on those products.
Mm-hmm.
And we did do that for a time. And so in some ways I was able to have my cake and eat it. Especially because I knew the products that I would launch, so I knew that would contribute to the earnout. So I knew there was a higher chance of the earnout being hit. Mm-hmm. However, the new owner and many other large organizations, we call them aggregators in the e-commerce space, whose strategy is to acquire and roll up e-commerce businesses into a larger portfolio, they do lack the operational capability of us as individual and small team e-commerce businesses. They're not as nimble and agile as us, and they can't hire talent. Because the talent doesn't want to work for them. The talent wants to build their own business and then sell it.
Yep.
And it's fair to say that I've been somewhat disappointed with a lot of things that have happened to the business since I sold it. And so, although I talk about what the business is all the time, I often have to say, because I'm slightly embarrassed about many of the things that you see when you look up that business now, I have to say, well, anything after Halloween 2019 is not my responsibility, right? And don't get me wrong, I like the new owners. But they and many others like them do struggle to keep doing the things that made the business attractive in the first place. Mm-hmm. And some of that isn't their fault because it's difficult to scale, and some of that is their fault because their business model was all wrong. They somewhat arrogantly believed that these weren't real grown-up businesses. These was just people selling stuff on the internet and it'll just run itself. And they didn't realize that no, these are true brands. Which look and feel and behave like a real CPG brand. And so when they stop doing everything wonderful and nimble that the original founder was doing, the wheels start to fall off.
That's really interesting and really important as well, as you talk about that, as in, we speak with many businesses that get very fixated on the fact, I want to sell, but it's understanding what that actually means. Yes, you get the payout, but what that means for you, if you're, some people are less passionate or don't mind as much, haven't grown that connection, but it's definitely a challenge. And did you have to have that, because some people will have to stay within the business for a certain amount of years? Did you have that, or was it just that you were creating products for them?
No, I didn't have to stay with the business, and most deals that we do, we don't see that. We see a transition period whereby the new owner will agree to a certain level of support to help the new owners integrate the brand into their existing setup. So that could be, say, a fortnightly call for several months, or up to 40 hours of support in, say, a 3-month period.
Yep.
It's rare to see somebody stay on, but it does happen. The smarter buyers try to do that. They want to take the entrepreneur's knowledge and cross-pollinate that across their family of brands. And that's something I was trying to do with the buyer of my business and other aggregators, basically since the day after I sold it. And it's very difficult to get people to listen from that point of view. But the smarter buyers, the smarter aggregators do that. The newer ones, who rather than being financial guys who raised money to buy e-commerce businesses, they're e-commerce guys who raised money to buy e-commerce businesses. They get it. And many of the early aggregators who have survived have paused their acquisitions whilst they get their house in order, And they have recognized, a bit too late, but finally, their weaknesses in this department and are actually trying to improve their operational capability.
Interesting. And so if you were then, because now you've gone into, so you've sold the business and you got it to, I mean, in such a short space of time, which is incredible. And then you say that you do the brokerage part. If you were to give that tip then to anyone that's watching, that has a brand, they're looking to sell, what would that tip be?
I think it depends on how far out they are. Well, actually, no. Let me change that. Rewind. The tip is this. It's work with a broker as early as possible to understand how much your business could be worth now, and what it could be worth, and how does that relate to your goals? Are you happy with that? But then understanding, by working with the right broker, what are the things that you can do to strengthen your business, to make it more sellable and valuable and attractive to a potential buyer so that it does meet your goals. And the right brokers will do that. You know, there's kind of several different types. There's those who purely focus on, when you're ready to sell, come to us and we'll sell it for you. There's those that will sort of list it on their website, kind of like the eBay of businesses. And then there's those that will work longer term, you know, sometimes 6, 12, 18 months even, with business owners to mentor them on a route to an exit, to plan their exit strategy. Because I like to use this Pinocchio analogy, right? Pinocchio said, I want to be a real boy. Well, entrepreneurs really often say, I want to have a real business. And that means that you take it through a mature process, like a real CPG brand would, rather than try to sort of flip it like you might, you know, if you had an affiliate blog. Right, that is perfectly appropriate for, you know, a blog or something like that, or a monetized YouTube account or something. But for a real business that's selling millions of dollars worth of product to customers, you ought to be treating your business with respect and yourself with self-respect, to take it through a real process and get what it's worth and what you deserve.
That's really interesting, just as a business owner myself, in terms of what you say, is it's how you treat, because I think sometimes when you are an entrepreneur and you are a business owner, sometimes everything is quite surreal and you don't really understand what's in front of you, and you almost keep treating it like it is a hobby.
Absolutely.
And there is a moment, I know with my business, with the agency, it's Karina, you're now leading and running an agency. These are people, everybody is working for you. You have employees and everything. This is grown up now. This isn't, you know, and it's that part where you do stop and see that.
I think so. And I think part of the, I'm not sure if problem is the right word, but I'm going to use it. I think part of the problem is this, because it's not easy. Entrepreneurship is not easy, and running these businesses and building these businesses correctly is not easy. Although if it was, buyers wouldn't buy businesses. They'd start their own, right? They'd rather buy. But it is accessible, because we live in a time where anyone can learn and do just about anything they want, except perhaps becoming a surgeon, you know, on the internet. I didn't do any courses. I learned everything from podcasts and YouTube and books. And therefore, because it's so accessible, it almost feels like you said, a hobby, surreal, something intangible. You're not handling the inventory. And for many people who've done well, it's felt so easy that they've never treated it like a real business. And they're constantly looking for the hack and the shortcut. Oh, I can save money by not selling it properly, do it myself, or just flip it or whatever. But we use experts for our trademarks. We use experts for our photography, our videography, our translations. We use experts for our VAT registry, for our accounting. So why would you not work with a real expert when it comes to your most valuable asset, which is actually selling it? And partly it's also because, you know, it depends how old you are, I think. But I think if you're, you know, in your 30s and above, we weren't. I remember when my dad brought home our Windows 95 computer, right? And it blew my mind, right? And so there was always this idea that the intranet is something other, something different, from disconnected from real life. And I think that contributes to this whole idea that this isn't real grown-up business, but actually the internet is now life. We are not separate from it. Business is life. You know, so I've heard people say before, we need to stop calling e-commerce e-commerce and just call it commerce. I still like to call it e-commerce, but and I think that contributes to it as well. Yeah,
that's really interesting about the tangible aspect. I love that, because I know, being a 100% remote business and not office based, it's not so much in your face, like if you had your own warehouse, or you had everybody in an office and all your stock around you. It's almost this, it's virtual, isn't it? And it's less, yeah, it's just looking at things differently. This has been absolutely awesome. I love your story, and it really I actually find it really inspiring, and I'm sure our listeners will too, that are starting up with a brand or wanting to get started and understanding more about their journey. Now, for those that are listening and that are going through that journey, if they want that support from yourself, I know you do the consulting part and the brokerage. What would be the next step for them, and a bit more, I guess, about Ecom Brokers as well?
Sure. So I'm a very people-y, chatty person, so they're very welcome to email me. Email ben@ecombrokers.co.uk or ben@benleonard.pro. Either is fine. And get me on LinkedIn. My handle on all social media channels is Ben Leonard Pro. So get me on there and drop me a DM. In terms of Ecom Brokers, it's never too early to start figuring out what your business might be worth. So then you can plan your strategy. So go to ecombrokers.co.uk. It's a UK domain, but we work globally. And fill in the form to kick off the process of figuring out what your business could be worth. And we'll be happy to help. And you know, we're very relationship based. So we will always guide you in the right direction, regardless of whether it's a fit to actually help you sell your business now or in the future. We're all about helping people.
Awesome, that's great. And in terms of your website address, we'll include everything in the description of the podcast. So if you do want to reach out to Ben from a consulting brokerage side of things, then you'll have all the information there. And I want to say thank you, Ben, again, for being an awesome guest today and sharing your story with our audience. And if anyone is listening and is at that point where they're needing that support when it comes to their Amazon business and wanting to grow their business on Amazon, to get it to that attractive stage, E-commerce Nurse is there to support, and we can support with account management, project management, and consulting directly on Amazon as well. So if you want more information, just go to ecommercenurse.com. So thanks again, Ben, for your time, and thank you, listeners, for taking the time to listen to our podcast for today.